Recording in progress.
Hello, good morning, class. Now, today we are doing session 2 on distributive bargaining. Now, the word distributive tells us that we are dividing resources. So, if you look at the diagram on your screen right now, the very first one on your left, okay, we are going to slice this pie in the middle such that A and B gets equal share of the pie. If you look at scenario number 2 in the middle, we are going to slice it somewhere to the right such that A gets a larger share of the pie. And if we look at scenario number 3, we are going to slice it somewhere to the left such that B gets a larger share of the pie. Now, as human being, all of us wants the good stuff. Okay, we want a larger share of the pie for ourselves. And this is what we are going to do. How can we maximize our share of the pie? So this is what we call distributive bargaining. Now, in a negotiation, often you have to allocate and divide resources. So how can we subsequently try to get a larger share of the pie for ourselves? So this is the learning outcome. Basically, it means what you should know by the end of today's topic. We're going to look at several terms in negotiation. For example, bargaining zone, positive bargaining zone, negative bargaining zone, as well as surplus. So if you have done economics, you know surplus is the extra you will receive. We're going to look at various pie slicing strategies. What are some of the commonly asked questions regarding negotiation? The importance and the power of saving face. Now, saving face in Chinese, we call it 面子. We're going to look at being fair to the other party and the various scenario in which we can use the different fairness rule. We're going to discuss the 3 types of social comparison. We're going to look at the equity principle, and finally, what are some of the guidelines for pie slicing. So this is a picture of a positive bargaining zone. Now, in our lecture yesterday, we briefly touched on target point. So what is target point? Target point is your aspiration. It is your aim. It is your goal. So from a seller's perspective, you want to sell your product at a high price, okay? So you can look at this seller's bargaining range, okay? and the seller's target point. So in this scenario over here, we can see that the seller's target point is $22. Now, from the seller's perspective, you also have your reservation point. So what did we look at reservation point yesterday? Reservation point is the minimum price you are willing to let go of your product. So in this scenario, we can see that, okay, maybe here is about $11, okay? So this is the seller's bargaining range. It is the region between the seller's reservation point as well as the seller's target point. So this is the region in which the seller is going to close the deal. Now, from the buyer's perspective, okay, imagine you are the buyer right now. Naturally, you want to buy the product at the lowest possible price. So the buyer's target point in this scenario is, let's say, $6. Okay, now what about the buyer's reservation point? You are willing to pay up to $14 for this product. So the region between the buyer's target point and the buyer's reservation point will become your bargaining range. Okay, I'm just going to pause here for a few seconds for you to internalize this idea. Now, in a negotiation, we look at two parties' perspective, seller's perspective as well as buyer's perspective. So the seller will have its own bargaining range. The buyer will also have his own bargaining range. Okay, and this bargaining range is the region between the target point and the reservation point. Now, do you see that there is a gap between both parties' reservation point? Okay, from the buyer's perspective, buyer is willing to pay up to $14 for this product, and the seller is willing to let go of the product at lowest $11. So there is this region here between both parties' reservation point, and when there is an overlap, it becomes a positive bargaining zone. That means there will be a deal in this negotiation. Okay, and this is, of course, the explanation. You can read through on your own when you are free to do so. Now let's look at negative bargaining zone, a somewhat similar example. Okay, the buyer's bargaining range, again, it is the region between the seller's reservation point and the seller's target point. And the buyer's bargaining range is the region between the buyer's target point and the buyer's reservation point. Do you see that this time there is no overlap between both parties' reservation point? Okay, now when there is no overlap between both parties' reservation point, there is no deal in this negotiation. And what should you do? Okay, both parties should exercise their BETNA. What is the meaning of BETNA? That means your plan B, your plan C, and your plan D. Because this situation is fruitless, there is no overlap between both parties' reservation point. That means there won't be a deal in this negotiation. All right, so the buyer should look for other sellers. The sellers should look for other buyers. Go and activate, go and exercise your plan B, because in this particular negotiation, there won't be an outcome. It is going to end at this stage. There won't be an outcome. So this is an example of negative bargaining zone. Okay, there is no overlap between both parties' reservation point. Okay, what about surplus? Okay, let's say in this scenario, the settlement is $12.50. Now, the seller is willing to let go at the product at $11 and manage to close the deal at $12.50. Okay, so the seller will get a surplus of $1.50. Now, similarly, if the buyer is willing to pay up to $14 for the product, but managed to get it at $12.50, so the buyer also get a surplus of $1.50. So basically, the surplus is the amount of money on top of your reservation point. Okay, let me repeat. Now, the seller is willing to let go of the product at $11. That is a reservation point, but managed to close the deal at $12.50. So this $1.50 becomes the surplus for the seller. Similarly, the buyer is willing to pay up to $14 for this product, okay, but managed to buy the product at $12.50. So there is a surplus of $1.50 for the buyer. Okay, it really depends where the settlement is, and your surplus between the buyer and the seller will be adjusted accordingly. Okay, so this is the explanation. You can read this when you are free to do so. Now we're looking at 10 pie slicing strategies. Now, pie slicing is the same as distributive bargaining. Okay, so basically, how can we claim a larger share of the pie for ourselves? You can see that altogether there are 10 strategies that we can use, and we are going to look at them in greater detail. First of all, assess your BETNA and improve it. Okay, we know that BETNA means the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. That means your plan B. Okay, so if you're not able to get a good deal in this negotiation, what you can do is to walk away and exercise your plan B. So it is very important for us to have alternatives so that we have the confidence to walk away knowing that, okay, there is another option for us. Now, a great partner will also help you to get a larger slice of the pie. Ask yourself, what is the probability of me exercising my BETNA? And if you have several alternatives, several options, what you can do is to rank them in terms of attractiveness to you. So you have a plan B, you have a plan C, you have a plan D. Okay, assess your BETNA and improve it. So basically, this strategy is telling us we must always have alternatives. Okay, if not, okay, I will not be able to reach a satisfactory agreement, and it gives us the confidence to walk away knowing that we have other options. Now, let me give you a scenario. Okay, scenario number one, you are very desperate for some parts to do a project. You went to a supplier. The supplier senses your urgency. Okay, you are desperate, and you have no fallback position because you have no BETNA. You are desperate. And in this scenario, the supplier is able to charge you at a higher price, okay? And you will still make a purchase from him because are desperate and you have no fallback plans. As compared to scenario number two, you go to the meeting prepared. Before arranging the meet, you have already met up with two other suppliers. These two other suppliers are actually his competitors, okay? These two other suppliers who are ready and able to handle all your needs. Now, when you meet up with this supplier, you can calmly sit back and subtly disclose that, hey, I have BETNA, I have two other suppliers who are able to supply me with the parts, okay? You have BETNA. And in this scenario, if this supplier wants to close the deal with you, he will probably give you a discount in order to entice you to close a deal with him rather than close a deal with his competitors. He may even give you a 5% discount or a 10% discount just to close the deal with you. Now, so these two scenarios show us the contrast, okay? Scenario number one, you have no BETNA. Scenario number two, you have BETNA, and the outcome is going to be very different. Scenario number one, the supply can increase its price. You are so desperate, you will still make the purchase. In scenario number two, okay, he may even want to give you a discount simply to entice you to close the deal with him. So it is so important for you to have backup plans, to have option, to have plan B, plan C, or even plan D. The more options you have, the more alternatives, okay, and you are able to walk away with a satisfactory agreement. Number two, Determine your reservation point, but do not review it. Do not tell the other party that, hey, I'm willing to pay up to $14 for your product. Or do not tell the other party that, if you're the seller, hey, I'm willing to let go of the product at lowest $11. Okay. Now, if you do that, there is no incentive for the other party to offer you more because you are already telling them your reservation point. There is no incentive for them to give you more. All right. So do not disclose your reservation point at any time. Number 3, try to research the other party's BATNA. Now, the other party's BATNA is also your competitors. Okay, try to estimate their reservation point. Now, they are just as smart as you. They are not going to share this information with you. So what you can do is to research, to try to find out as much information as you can about the other party. What is it that they want from you? Do they have BATNA? You may not be able to get the information, but at least know them well enough who are your competitors. Okay, if they don't get the products or if they don't get close the deal with you, they are going to close the deal with your competitors. Okay, so know who your competitors are, and your competitors are actually their BATNA. Number 4, set high aspiration. Have a high target for yourself, but at the same time be realistic that it is within the bargaining range. No point setting a target that is so high that nobody is interested to close the deal with you. Okay, be realistic because unrealistic offers is outside the true bargaining zone. And if you ask for something outrageous, you run the risk of souring the relationship between both parties. And this is what we call the chilling effect. Okay, this brings us to this particular diagram. Now, in lecture 1, we look at winner's curse, okay, whereby you ask for too little. Okay, it is at your reservation point. That means you have no surplus for yourself. Slightly above your reservation point, still not good enough. Moderately above your reservation point, not very good. Now, the ideal point is at the other party's reservation point. Now, at the other party's reservation point, that means you get all the surplus for yourself. Okay? You get all the surplus for yourself, and this is the ideal point. However, sometimes, okay, you can push for a little bit more, whereby you can go up to this highest point that is slightly above the other party's reservation point. Maybe in certain scenario, they are in need of money, okay, and they are willing to let go of their product, okay, at slightly above their reservation point. That means they are already making a loss, okay. Sometimes you can push to this point here, but you should know when to stop. If you keep on pushing for more and more, you are asking for way too much. And this result in the chilling effect. You can see that the line comes down immediately, very sharply. Okay, you are already asking for way too much. This is what we call the chilling effect. And you can see that at this stage, nobody is interested to negotiate with you anymore. Okay, so if we were to look at this diagram again, the first part here is the winner's curse. You're asking for too little until you reach this point whereby it is at the other party's reservation point. That means you get all the surplus for yourself. Now, this is the ideal point to close the deal. If you can reach this point, you are in a very good position already. Sometimes, based on situation and based on the other party, you may be able to push for a little bit more to the extent that they are already making a loss. Okay, and this will be the ideal scenario in such circumstances. And beyond that, you are asking for way too much. It drops down drastically. This is what we call the chilling effect. This is the stage whereby you are going to damage the relationship between both parties, and you should definitely not reach this part here. Okay, so do be very mindful that as you push to get a better deal, you don't go beyond the point whereby it reaches the chilling effect. Number 5, make the first offer when you are ready to do so. Now, you can make the first offer. In fact, your first offer is the anchor point for the other party to make a counter offer. Let's say I'm going to sell this product for $100. So $100 becomes the anchor point for the other party to make a counter offer. So the other party will say, $100 is really too much. What about $90? Okay, so your $100 is the anchor point for the other party to make a counter offer. Now, some things that you can consider about making the first offer. Now, the first offer should not be a range. You should not say between $80 to $100. Okay, it should not be a range because the other party will immediately use your lower range as a target point, okay, as your first offer. Now, it should not be a range. It should not be $80 to $100. It should be a fixed price at $100, okay? And also observe the non-verbal cues. We're going to discuss more about the non-verbal cues in session 4. Okay, patience and silence can be important negotiation tools. Now, when the other party keeps quiet, don't interpret that silence as a form of rejection of your offer. Okay, let them consider, maybe they just need a bit more time to internalize the idea, maybe discuss with the family, discuss with the friends before they reach out to you again. Okay, so don't make any premature concessions. In other words, don't make more than one concession before the other party responds or make a counter offer. Now, when should you make the first offer? This is just a guideline, all right? When both parties have good information, they are both very well prepared and well informed, you can make the first offer because your offer is the anchor point for the other party to make a counter offer. When both parties are equally ignorant, don't really know what is happening in this negotiation, you can also make the first offer because the other party is just as confused as you. The other party is just as ignorant as you. Then you should also make the first offer. Now, when you have good information, the other party does not get the other party to make the first offer. When you don't have good information, but the other party has good information, also invite them to make the first offer. So these are just some guidelines who should make the first offer. Number 6, immediately re-anchor if the other party opens first. Now, if the other party make an offer, I want to sell the product at $100. If you are the buyer, what should you do? You should shift the focus away from the other party's offer. Okay, shift the focus from the $100 and drop it down to something that is more acceptable for you if you are the buyer. So if the other party say, hey, I want to sell for $100, you immediately drop it down to, now it's too expensive. What about $80? Okay, so you shift the offer from $100 down to $80, which is something that is more acceptable for you. So there are two advantages. It diminished the other party's initial offer as the anchor point. You shift that $100 down to your $80. And number 2, when you make a counter offer, it shows your willingness to continue in this negotiation. It shows that you're interested to continue to do this negotiation with the other party. So make a timely counter offer. Number 7, plan your concessions. Yesterday, we looked at concession. Concession means discount, the discount that you give each other. Now, negotiators who make fewer, gradual, and smaller concessions will maximize their share of the pie. Now, 3 things to consider: pattern. Is it a unilateral concession? The word uni means one. That means concession made by one party. Bilateral concession means two. The word bi means two. Okay, bilateral concession means concession made by both parties. I give in a little bit, you give in a little bit. I give in a little bit more, you give in a little bit more. So this is what we call bilateral concession. So look at the pattern. Is it a bilateral concession, or is it just one party just giving in and making the concession all the time? Now, look at the magnitude of concession, how much to give in. Do I give a 1% discount or 2% discount or 5% discount or 10% discount? Now, don't make a concession that's greater than the other party. Okay, if the other party is only offering a 1% discount, there is no reason for you to offer 5% discount. Okay, it should match what the other party is offering. Because if you are more generous, you end up with little profit for yourself. Okay, magnitude of concession. If the other party is giving a 5% discount, there is no reason why you should be giving a 10% discount or a 15% discount. It doesn't make sense because the more discount you give, the less profit you have in return. Okay, so it should not be greater than what the other party is offering. If the other party is only offering 5% discount, that should be the maximum you should also offer, not more than 5%. Number three, timing. When should you make a counter offer or a concession? Okay, so we have immediate, gradual, or delayed. Now, research shows that people are more satisfied with gradual concession. So let's just imagine a scenario. If you are so enthusiastic to give a discount, you want to give a discount immediately. If the other party asks for a 5% discount, you say, oh, yes, yes, of course, yes. And then that person push for a 10% discount. Sure, I will give you a 10% discount. It shows that you are too enthusiastic, too eager to negotiate, okay? And the other party may start to wonder, why is this person so keen to give me a discount? Is there a problem with the product? Is there a problem with the service? Is this a scam? All right. So people start to feel very insecure if you give a concession immediately. It shows how desperate you are to close a deal with them. And when you do that, the other party starts to worry. Okay, you're too enthusiastic. There must be a problem with a product or services. This must be a scam. You're out to cheat me, etc. Okay, you put a lot of doubt in the other person. And research has shown that people are more satisfied with gradual concession. Okay. Now, what about delayed concession? If you delay replying or making a counter offer, etc., the other party may have moved on and closed a deal with somebody else. So don't take 1 month, 2 months before you reply to the other party. Okay. So gradual in terms of timing is ideal. Number eight, support your offers with facts. If a proposal is labeled as fair, it tends to carry more impact. That means you actually consider both parties' perspective, not just consider yourself and what you want to achieve, but you also consider the other party being fair to them. It makes it easier for the other party to buy into your rationale. Number nine, appeal to norms of fairness. This is a continuation of number eight, whereby people want to view themselves as fair. So try to appeal to the norms of fairness. We are going to look at various fairness rules later. This will help you in your arguments during the negotiation. However, fairness is something that is very subjective. Okay, what is fair to you may not be as fair to me. Therefore, focus on norms of fairness that serve your own interests. And finally, number 10, do not fall for the even split ploy. Now, this is something that you may experience in a negotiation. Now, again, let me give you a scenario, a car buying situation. You initially offered $33,000 for the car, and a few rounds of negotiation, you increase to $34,000, and finally $34,500. So from $33,000 to $34,500, you have made a concession of $1,500. Now, the salesperson, the one who is selling you the car, initially requested for 35,200, reduced to $35,000, and then finally reduced to $34,550. If you have made the calculation, you know that the salesperson has only made a concession of $650. Okay, $650 concession made by the other party as compared to your $1,500 concession made by yourself, right from the start, it is not fair already. Now, at this point, if the other person say, let's both give in a little and close it at midpoint, okay, it is already not fair right from the start because you make a much bigger concession than the other party. So do not fall for the even split ploy, even when you come to very close of reaching an agreement and the other person say, okay, let's meet at the middle ground. I give in, you give in, let's close the deal. However, right from the start, it is already not fair because you make a much bigger concession of $1,500 compared to the concession that he made, only $650. So this brings us back to our earlier strategy whereby, okay, the magnitude of concession should not be greater than the other person. If the other person is only giving a 2% concession, you should not make a concession of more than 2%. Okay, so in this scenario, it is already not fair to you right from the start. So these are the 10 pie slicing strategies that you can use to try and maximize your share of the pie or the resources. Now, some commonly asked question, should I review my reservation point? Absolutely not, okay? Because you will not have any surplus for yourself. Now, instead, you should try to estimate the other party's reservation point and offer him, okay, at close to his reservation point. Okay, so do not review your reservation point. If not, you will have no surplus for yourself. But what you should do is try to estimate their reservation point, okay, and make the offer close to his reservation point. Number two, should I lie about my reservation point? Preferably not because it is unethical. It also does not make sense when you say something like, hey, this is my final offer. Okay, when you say this is my final offer, you're actually telling them, hey, this is my reservation point. There's no way I can make another concession. However, it will be very embarrassing if you continue to make a concession after making such a statement. So, do not actually lie about your reservation point. Thirdly, lying can hurt your reputation. If you give people the impression that you are a very tough negotiator, very difficult negotiator, very aggressive negotiator, you realize that people are going to behave very competitively towards you or maybe bypass you altogether and go and close the deal with somebody else because you have such a bad reputation of being a very difficult negotiator, very tough negotiator, then you will realize that nobody really wants to negotiate with you because ultimately they also want to have a win-win outcome, okay, instead of a win-lose outcome. Should I try to manipulate the other party's reservation point? Preferably not. Don't do that because we have to assume that the other party is just as intelligent as you, as motivated as you, as well prepared as you. So try not to use scare tactics. If you don't sell your house to me, I'm sure you can't find another buyer. Okay, don't challenge them unnecessarily. Don't use scare tactics because it may backfire. Okay, and they may get very defensive as a result. Okay, just assume that they are just as well prepared as you, they are just as intelligent, as well motivated as yourself. Finally, should I make a final offer or commit to a position? Yes, you can commit to a position only if you really mean it. That means, okay, this is my final offer. Okay, you do not give another concession. You do not give another discount after saying something like this. Now, the power of saving face, okay, in Mandarin, we call it 面子. It is a person's public image, reputation, status, in the negotiation. So we try not to threaten a person's face by making ultimatums. We don't criticize them. We don't challenge them. We don't insult them. Okay. So try to save face for the other party, especially in our Eastern culture. Okay. We focus a lot on saving face, making the other person feel good about the negotiation. Now, if a person's face is threatened, okay, it can tip the balance from their behavior away from cooperation towards competition. Maybe they come to the bargaining table, they want to cooperate with you. However, sometimes emotions can run high, you get angry, you get frustrated, and you start insulting them, okay? You start criticizing them, you start challenging them. Sometimes people do that because they can't control their emotions. Now, when you do that, the other person is going to change their cooperative behavior towards competition because you make them look bad. Okay, you make ultimatums, you criticize them, you challenge them, you insult them, you make them look bad and feel bad, and they are going to be very competitively, we're going to react competitively towards you, and this can result in an impasse. Impasse means no deal in a negotiation or even a lose-lose outcome. Okay, so control, manage your own emotions. Okay, do not say things that you will regret later. Okay, the importance of saving face, especially in our Eastern culture. Now, if the other party label the offer as final, okay, your response is important. Now, just to give you some scenario, making the other party lose face, okay, by making a statement like this. So this is your final offer. I guess things are over between us. Okay, it sounds really bad. You're going to close the negotiation with no deal and a bad relationship between both parties. What about saving face for the other party? Let me consider your offer and I'll get back to you. A much more pleasant way of replying the other party. Okay, sometimes in a negotiation, it is true that emotions may run high, okay, but do not say anything that you will regret later. Sometimes whatever you say out, okay, you cannot take it back anymore. Okay, the other person will be offended. All right, and this is definitely going to damage the relationship. Now, remember just now we mentioned about being fair to the other party. So we're going to look at the various methods of fair division. Okay, so we have equality rule. That means equal share for everyone. Everyone benefits and suffers equally. So an example of equality rule, our justice system. Everyone should have the right to an equal and fair trial regardless of who you are, regardless of your education level, regardless of your social status, regardless of your income, regardless of your gender, regardless of your religious beliefs. Everybody should have the right to an equal and fair trial, regardless of who you are. That is equality rule. What about equity rule? Equity rule is what you receive is proportional to your contribution. Okay, let me repeat. What you receive is proportional to your contribution. That means if you contribute more, be prepared to get more in return. If you contribute less, be prepared to get less in return. So let me give you a few examples. Paying premium price for the best seats in the theater. Let's say you go to Taylor Swift concert. All right, you bought the VIP tickets that cost like a few $1,000s. You get the best seats in the theater, and maybe you even have a chance to interact with the celebrity. Maybe there is a meet and greet whereby you can have a photograph with a celebrity, maybe even an autograph with the celebrity. Why? That is because you paid premium price for such entitlement, and such entitlement is only reserved for selected people who are willing to pay premium price. Okay, another example, students who receive better grades have priority in choosing their preferred schools and courses. Now, this is something that our Singapore students experience since a very young age. Now, in Singapore, we have the PSLE, Primary School Leaving Examination at 12 years old. It is a national examination. And this national examination is going to help students and their parents determine what secondary school they can go to and at what intensity? Is it a level 1, level 2, or level 3 intensity? So students put a lot of emphasis and a lot of hard work to try and achieve better grades, because better grades means going to better school, going to elite schools, and able to choose to study at a higher level. Okay, so that is equity rule. It is proportional to a person's contribution. And finally, needs-based rule, it is based on welfare. That means benefits is proportional to a person's needs. Let me give you an example. Now, disabled people are entitled to disabled parking lots, designated MRT seats, disabled toilets in a shopping mall, etc. Why? Because such resources are specially reserved for them. Maybe they are not, it is not very convenient for them in a wheelchair, or so they need to have bigger toilets. That's why we have disabled toilets, whereby it is bigger and you can push the whole wheelchair into the toilet. Disabled parking lots that are nearer to the entrance of the shopping mall, for example, and designated MRT seats. These seats are reserved for people who needs this is more than yourself, okay? Because you are healthy, you're young, you're able to stand when there are no other seats available. Now, another example, government provides financial assistance in the form of GST rebates based on needs depending on a person's household income. So maybe if a person is staying in a rental flat, they have no means of paying their own bills, okay? So the government will provide financial assistance. Maybe they don't even have the ability to put food on the table. So the government provides vouchers whereby they can use those vouchers to go to the shopping mall to exchange for household items as well as food. So this is what we call needs-based rule. It is based on a welfare allocation. Okay, it is based on a person's needs. Now, what fairness rule to use will depend on the goals that you want to achieve. If you want to minimize waste, then needs-based rule is most effective. Okay, because needs-based rule, you only provide to people who needs them. So it helps to minimize waste. Now, if your goal is to maintain or to enhance harmony, okay, equality-based rule is most effective. And if you want to enhance productivity and performance, then equity-based rule is the most effective. So it depends on the goals that you want to achieve, and you will use those rules accordingly. Now, it also depends on the negotiator's relationship to the other party. Friends tend to use the equality rule. Okay, they want to view themselves as equal among their peers. So friends tend to use equality rule. Non-friends, acquaintances tend to use equity rule. Whether a person is dealing with rewards or costs. Now, equality is often used to allocate benefits. Okay, equal share for everybody, everybody is happy. Equity is often used to allocate burdens. Okay, so if you want to punish somebody, often you don't punish the whole group, you only punish selected individuals who commit the offense. So it again depends whether you are dealing with rewards or costs. Now, let's look at another theory called social comparison. This is something that I believe all of us have experienced since we were young, whereby we compare ourselves with others, okay? Who maybe you compare yourself with your siblings, with your neighbors, with your friends, who is more good looking, who is better in school, um, who is more talented, who play a sports, who play a musical instrument, who is more well liked by teachers, who is more well liked by parents. So from a very young age, you may be exposed to social comparison. Sometimes you compare yourself with others. Sometimes others compare you with others. So let us look at the three theories regarding social comparison. Upwards comparison, whereby people compares themselves to somebody who is better off, more accomplished, higher in status. Now, why do you think people wants to compare themselves? They do that for inspiration and motivation. They want to improve themselves. Okay. I want to be just as successful as you. I want to retire at 40 years old, just like you. Okay. So I look up to you for inspiration and motivation. Okay. I want to be just like you. So this is self-improvement. Sometimes people compare downwards, okay? They compare themselves to others who are less fortunate, less able, less accomplished, or lower in status. Now, why do you think people want to compare downwards? Because they want to feel good about themselves. Okay, this is for self-enhancement purposes. So, for example, I have a friend with a disabled child, okay, on a wheelchair. And what my friend did was, um, they went on a family trip, okay, to a few less developed countries, okay, and to just see how the people live, okay, to make the child realize that yes, although you are disabled and in a wheelchair, you are actually so much more fortunate than all these people in the less developed countries whereby they are struggling with just basic needs. They don't have proper shoes, they don't have an education, they don't even have food on the table. So even though you are disabled, you have to be on a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Know that you are in a much better position than a lot of other children in less developed countries. So why do people do that? Okay, they want to let others see that, hey, yes, even though you are disadvantaged in one way or another, you are in a much better position than others who have even worse, who are in a worse state than you, they have less resources than you, etc. Okay, so this is for self-enhancement purposes. Now, the last one, comparison with similar others, whereby people choose to compare themselves with others of similar background, skills, and ability. And why do people do that? To have an accurate appraisal of their own ability. So maybe you want to compare results with your friends in the same diploma course, okay? Because you're doing the same thing, similar background, all right? And you want to see who is better in this particular module. It is to get an accurate self-evaluation. So you may want to compare with your peers of the same age, or you may want to compare with your peers doing the same diploma program, or you may want to compare with people of the same gender, etc. Okay, so it is to get an accurate self-evaluation. Now, moving on to the last part of this session, we have guidelines for pie slicing. So making use of our 10 strategies to help us maximize our share of the pie. Now it is time for us to slice the pie. It is the time for us to distribute those resources. So what are some of the guidelines that we can use to help us distribute the resources? So there are 7 of them, and we're going to look at them in greater detail. First of all, be consistent, okay? The pie should be distributed in a consistent manner, regardless of setting, time, and person, regardless of where you slice the pie, regardless of when you slice the pie, and regardless of the person who is slicing the pie. Okay, it should be done in a consistent manner, regardless of when, where, and who is doing it. Number 2, it should be simple, easy, and clearly understood by everyone. There is no confusion because it is a very simple, very clear procedure. Number 3, effective. Okay, there should be a clear decision in the way you allocate resources. If not, there may be conflict after that. Justifiability, it is justifiable to all parties. It is fair and acceptable for everyone. All parties should agree with the method, okay, consensus. All parties agree with the way you distribute the resources. Generalizability, it is applicable to different situations, and all parties should be satisfied with the way the resources are allocated. If not, okay, there may be conflict and people will not follow through with their agreements. So these are the 7 guidelines when it is time for you to allocate the resources. Now, with this, we have come to the end of session 2. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you next week for lecture, and next week will also be the first time I'm seeing you for tutorials. Take care. Have a great weekend.